The Daily Derech. We are walking the path of holiness.
Hello, everybody. This is Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein. Welcome to the Daily Derech, a special project of exploring Judaism, the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, and the Rabbinical Assembly. Today is the 6th day after Shabbat Kodesh, the 9th of Nisan, 5786, corresponding in the secular calendar to Friday, March 27th, 2026. We will read Parashat Tzav this coming Shabbat, and we are 5 days from Pesach. Let's begin.
All right, Me'am Loez on Parashat Tzav. This is our last day this week. We'll be spending on Parashat Tzav before Shabbat, and we've been talking about this particular act that was done in the morning to clean the ashes off the altar. The reason being that there was a sacrifice that was offered in the afternoon, and that sacrifice actually left on the altar all night burning. And so the ashes, the remains, have to be swept off the altar in the morning. And usually, of course, one would think of this as just a sort of a necessary task, maybe not the most honoring task in the world, to sweep ashes away. But as we spoke about in previous classes, that this is something that the priests literally had to take lots on. They wanted to do this job so badly. It was seen as such an important job. Now, we spoke about yesterday a little bit about the clothes that a Kohen wears, and we said the idea that the Kohen actually wears their normal clothes to do this service in the Beit HaMikdash. You might think, well, okay, maybe they're doing a sacrifice or doing some appearing in public. Okay, they have to wear their uniform, but not for very early in the morning. No one else is there, and they're just cleaning the ashes off the altar. But they do. They wear their normal clothes for that. The author of the Me'am Loez takes this as an opportunity to say how we should be dressed when coming to synagogue, and how we should be dressed when in prayer. Now, what he basically says is, people are starting to come to synagogue dressed in all kinds of stuff, all kinds of clothing that maybe don't look so nice, aren't so respectful towards God, and I think people reading this might say to themselves, well, why is this guy so stuffy? Why does he care so much about what people are wearing? And, well, I think you might have a good point in that regard. Why does he care so much about what people are wearing? Well, I think it gets down to what that means, what that actually shows, right? When the way what we wear is a communication of our respect for other people, and specifically a respect and understanding of the people who we're in the room with. That's why it's important to dress nicely, to dress cleanly. It's not about wearing a certain company of clothing or fancy clothing in particular, but respectful, clean clothing, which is really important, right? Because that shows that you respect the person that you're standing in front of with. And we know this, if you go have a big business meeting, or you go see a king or a president or a world leader, you're going to wear fancy clothes. You're going to wear your nice clothes. You're not going to wear your t-shirt and your ratty t-shirt and everything like this. But for some reason, for many, it's different. When they come to shul, they want to wear whatever they want. And all of a sudden, when you say, don't dress like that or dress more respectfully, all of a sudden, it's like we're not respecting the person, respecting who they are. And I get that. I mean, I don't want to have a synagogue either where we're constantly telling people what to wear. That's as a synagogue rabbi, I constantly have the choice to tell people what to wear, and constantly don't take that choice, not just because it's going to upset them, because there's something not right about that. But I just think individually, for each of us, I think we can take his advice to say, if we really respect God, and we're really coming into a place where we feel like we're talking to the master of the universe, you should dress that way. You should dress in your nice clothing. You should dress in respectful clothing, because that will also help you comport yourself and help you behave yourself in a respectful manner when sitting with the Creator. It also helps your davening, honestly. It helps you speak in a different way, feel a different way, feel like you're in the presence of greatness because you are dressing like you're in the presence of greatness. So these things are extremely important today. But I think, again, let me mention it again, it is for ourselves to legislate, right? You should legislate your own clothing. This is not for you to legislate other people's clothing, right? That's between themselves and God. I never want to see someone telling someone that they should be wearing something necessarily different than they're wearing if they come to shul. Shul should be a comfortable place for everybody. But that doesn't mean that on each and every individual should be the discipline of trying to dress with respect for the place in which you are and for the king in which you're standing in front of course, the creator of the universe. And again, if you want to really feel that God is present, one of the best ways to do that, honestly, is to dress for the occasion, right? That actually helps you feel and get in the place where God really is present and you're really feeling that way. Try it. Try putting aside certain clothes that you wear when you daven, making sure that you wear nice clothes. Even if you're home alone by yourself, not even in the synagogue, make sure that you wear nice clothes when you talk to God. I promise you will change the way your prayer is. Let's turn to the Mishneh Torah of Maimonides. We're going to continue learning the laws of Pesach, the laws of Chametz u'matzah. We're on the 5th chapter, and we're going to look at the 21st halacha. Actually, we're going to go back one. I skipped a halacha yesterday, so we're going to make up for it today a little bit. And really what I want to talk about this idea is transfer of taste. So it's really important, obviously, not to eat chametz on Pesach, but the idea, and this is true with non-kosher food as well, even outside of Pesach, the rabbis believe that non-kosher or prohibited taste is not only in the food itself, but sometimes can be transferred into the utensils and the plates and the pots and the pans as well, in which you eat on or use to cook the food. So this particularly happens in cases when it's really, really hot. And that's when you get the transfer of taste. Usually so hot that if you touch it, your finger burns. This is called yad soledet bo in Hebrew. Basically, that your hand will bounce back if it touches the surface. It's so hot. And that means, according to the sages, if it's that hot, that any taste transfers. So let's say you're eating pizza, and the pizza's like super boiling hot, and you put it on a plate of some kind. Then not only the pizza has the taste of the pizza, of course, but so too does the plate. And therefore, if you use the plate for something else with something else that's hot, then the taste of the pizza will actually transfer from the plate into the food. This is what the rabbis believed in terms of kashrut. Now, they only believed this when the food was hot. And what this means is let's say you eat a piece of steak on a very, very hot piece of steak on a plate, and then you want to eat macaroni and cheese on the same plate, the hot macaroni and cheese. If there's nothing wrong, obviously, with eating mac and cheese, but if you put the mac and cheese on this plate that you use the steak to eat, and eventually, even if it's completely clean and you cleaned it off, there's an idea that the meat taste has gotten embedded in the walls of the plate, and now once you put the hot macaroni and cheese on it, the meat taste will emit from the walls itself of the plate and then go into the macaroni and cheese. And what's your problem? You're going to have a mixture of milk and meat, and that's forbidden in Judaism. So we can't have that. And so that is one thing that we need to be concerned about when it comes to kashrut. It's why people have multiple different kinds, in a lot of homes you'll see dairy and meat plates and everything like this. So that's something important in general. But I think one thing that's really important, it's funny, I always do this all the time in the stores. Oftentimes when I'm going to buy meat from a grocery store, oftentimes it's in Trader Joe's because they happen to have the Empire kosher meats. I'll buy chicken, and I'll purposely put the chicken in the same bag with the milk. And I look like an obvious Jew. I have a kippah on. I have tzitzit. People look at me like, you really want this chicken in the same bag as the milk? I thought you were supposed to keep this separate. And I use it often as a good teaching opportunity to say, actually, they can be in the same bag together. And the reason is because they're both cold. When two substances are cold, there is no transfer of taste. So technically, I could actually take kosher salami and a piece of cheese and rub them together a little bit, as long as they're cold, and then wash them off afterwards, and then eat both the salami and the cheese separately. They are not a mixture of milk and meat. All they need to do is be cleaned off. And this is what the law in Maimonides in the 21st chapter, 21st halacha, is specifically talking about, that if a vessel that was used to make chametz before, but the chametz was cold, then there is no transfer of the chametz taste to the plate, and therefore, if you cook matzah and it's something that has no chametz in it, or can't have chametz because of Pesach, then it will not, the chametz taste will not transfer from the bread that was cooked in it earlier, as long as everything is kept cold. So this is really important in terms of kashrut, to keep things cold, and it really helps you not go a little crazy in making sure that meat doesn't get contaminated with the dairy, and everything needs to be kept so separately. But of course, also true with Pesach as well, in terms of the taste of chametz, and making sure that the taste of chametz is not absorbed by us through the walls of the plates and the utensils and the pots and pans we use.
We'll finish today with Menorat HaMaor. We're going to continue learning midrashim and ideas surrounding the story of the freedom of the Jewish people from Egyptian servitude. We're going to be talking about Miriam today. Miriam did something very special in the beginning of the Passover story. Who's Miriam? Miriam is the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, the Jewish leader who freed the Jewish people from Egypt. Miriam was really, really special. We know from the simple lens that Miriam was the one who sort of who was given out to sort of scout and see what would happen to Moshe in the end. Once his mother Yocheved put him in a ark, put him in a little reed basket on the Nile River during the edict of when the Egyptians were to throw newly born Jewish baby boys into the Nile River. So this was, of course, a way of saving Moshe. We know that Moses is picked up by the princess of Pharaoh and grows up in Pharaoh's castle, and thank God he's saved. It's an amazing, amazing thing. But of course, no one knew that was specifically going to happen. And we actually get some fan fiction. We get some rabbinic fan fiction here of what happened in the meantime. We see that actually Miriam waited around. She went to see what was going on, and she actually waited and watched and spied on that basket, watching it for an hour to see what would happen to it, and did not leave the basket. And can you imagine how difficult this would be to be a sister, or watch your baby brother, helpless infant baby brother, sitting on the Nile River, bouncing around in the waves with nobody to help them, probably crying. And, it would be the easiest thing if you had to do that, to just walk away, right? And not to see such a terrible sight and try to forget it as quickly as possible, and probably honestly be scarred the rest of your life in this horrible, horrible situation that this Jewish family is in. But instead, she chooses to look into the darkness. She stays with Moshe. She looks from afar and watches. And I can't imagine how terrible every minute of this must have been, watching this helpless baby boy. And for the reward of staying to care and to watch and make sure Moshe was okay, or whatever it was, we're actually told by the rabbis in the Gemara that Miriam was eventually rewarded for this. How is she rewarded for this? Well, there is going to be a time that comes in the book of Numbers where Miriam actually does wrong against Moshe. Miriam speaks Lashon Hara about Moshe and his wife Zipporah in the book of Numbers, and because that, she's stricken with sara'at, or she's stricken with this leprosy-like disease that usually comes as a punishment for speaking Lashon Hara, or speaking damaging language. And we see that the Jewish people waits for her entire quarantine period of 7 days. And this, according to the rabbis, according to our sages, is the reward Miriam gets for waiting for Moshe and watching Moshe on the shore. For waiting and watching it for just an hour, we see that the entire Jewish people waits for her for 7 days. And that, I think, teaches us a lesson of the importance of not hiding from difficult things. Sometimes it's easy for us to stick our head in the sand and just make believe we're not seeing it. But as Jews, that's really not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be present. We're supposed to walk in often to times of discomfort so we can actually do the act of chesed, to do the act of loving kindness. Oftentimes, the greatest acts that we do of loving kindness are, at the time in which we're doing it,
also causing the greatest amount of emotional discomfort. And our Jewish tradition asks us to walk into that discomfort, not to run away from it. That is going to be so important, especially when doing Bikur Cholim, especially when visiting people who are sick, which is a really, really important mitzvah. Everything in your body. I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go check this. I don't want to go there. I don't want to see a sick person. Do they really want to see me? And everything like this. And really, those are just rationalizations. We should go and visit those who are sick. And it's challenging. It's hard. It might feel like you don't want to do that. The hospital might make you uncomfortable in general. But that's actually an important part about Judaism, is to really look into the darkness, to stay present even when things are uncomfortable. And in doing so, what this, I think, shows us is even when we aren't as good as we can be in ourselves, and we fail, just as Miriam failed in speaking Lashon Hara against Moses, people are willing to give us the benefit of the doubt. People are willing to think about our past experiences in this way if we're willing to sit in the darkness with them. So that's really important. If you want people to sit in the darkness with you and sit in your darkness, then you have to sit with their darkness. It's going to be so, so important, and a really important mitzvah.
Well, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Daily Derech. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me anytime at rmr@templeofaaron.org. Thank you so much for listening. There are so many people to thank, and you can look in the show notes for that. And also, if you want to know and see any of these texts in the original, we actually have that too. You can actually find that in our episode description. So look in each of the episode descriptions and you'll find that information right there. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
The Daily Derech.